Last Tuesday, the matchup between Real Madrid and Manchester City delivered yet another Champions League classic. It's the latest chapter in a bitter rivalry that, not long ago, didn't even exist. But things change fast in football, and right now, Madrid vs City is by far the biggest game in European competition. It all started back in 2016. At this point, Madrid and City had never met in a Champions League knockout round before, and the two clubs were in very different places. With 10 European Cups to their name, Real Madrid were already Champions League royalty. Stacked with world-class players, they had just been crowned champions in 2014 after pulling off a historic last-minute comeback in the final. Manchester City, on the other hand, were deep into the process of trying to break into Europe's elite. It was only a decade earlier when they were still stuck in mid-table battles, even spending time in England's second division in the late 90s. The club had no major European pedigree, and their last English league title had come all the way back in the 1960s. But that all changed in 2008, when the club was taken over by the Abu Dhabi United Group. Almost overnight, City was transformed. Money poured in, world-class players followed, and the club quickly went from an afterthought to a genuine force in English football. By 2016, they were already dominant in England, winning 2 Premier League titles, an FA Cup, and 2 League Cups. In European competition, however, they were still finding their feet. This was their first ever semi-final, and standing in their way was the most successful club in the tournament's history. The first leg in Manchester ended with a tense 0-0 draw. City held their own, but struggled to create real chances. In the second leg at the Bernabéu, the tie was finally decided by a single own goal. Madrid didn't blow City away, they didn't dominate, but in typical Madrid fashion, they got the job done. When the final whistle blew, Los Blancos were on their way to yet another Champions League final, where they would go on to lift their 11th European title. For Madrid, the games against City were just another night in Europe. For the Sky Blues, it was a reminder of how far they still had to go. But as we said earlier, things changed fast in football, and the gap wasn't going to last much longer. In the summer of that year, City announced Pep Guardiola as their new head coach. Fresh off a dominant spell at Bayern, the Catalan was already regarded as one of the best managers in the world. The architect behind one of the greatest teams in history, conqueror of Europe with Barcelona, and already a bitter rival of Real Madrid. City weren't just bringing in a world-class coach. They were handing Guardiola a blank slate, a massive budget, and complete control to shape the club in his image. As expected though, the transition was not instant. Pep and City's first season was underwhelming by his standards, finishing in 3rd place in the Premier League, winning no trophies, and suffering an early Champions League exit. But by year 2, everything started to click. City managed a record-breaking 100 points in the Premier League to take home their first league title under Pep. With 198 points across his first 2 full campaigns, and then a domestic treble in 2019, City were now unquestionably the best team in England and one of the best in Europe. Yet still, City's European woes hadn't gone anywhere. They suffered a chaotic exit to Monaco in 2017, a crushing defeat to Liverpool the year after, and in 2019, another brutal quarterfinal loss against Spurs with that infamous Sterling goal in stoppage time that ended up being disallowed by VAR. Every year, City dominated England, and every year, they fell short in Europe. Meanwhile, Real Madrid were having the exact opposite experience. Between 2016 and 2018, Los Merengues were absolutely untouchable. Under the command of Zinedine Zidane, they conquered 3 straight Champions League titles, defining an era of European dominance unlike anything we had seen in the modern game. It was an iconic team that put fear into every opponent's heart, especially when it came to the UCL. But good times never last, and in the summer of 2018, things took an unexpected turn for the worse. CR7 shockingly left the club for Juventus. Zizou stepped down as a manager. In an instant, Madrid had lost their leader on the pitch and on the touchline. For many, it was simply the end of an era. To make matters even worse, their first season post-Ronaldo was a complete disaster, culminating in a shocking 4-1 defeat to Ajax at the Bernabéu. The team just wasn't the same under Lopetegui or Santiago Solari. Young talents like Vinicius Jr. and Rodrygo showed promise, but they weren't ready to lead, at least not yet. Madrid needed someone who understood their DNA, and in their desperation, they turned back to Zidane. And with his return, Madrid started to recover. Benzema stepped up as the team's leader, Ramos commanded the defense, and Madrid clawed their way back to the top of La Liga with a resilient defense-first approach. In February of 2020, almost 5 full years since their previous matchup, Manchester City and Real Madrid would finally meet again during the Champions League round of 16. But this time there was one big difference. City were ready. In the first leg, Pep's squad showed Madrid exactly how much had changed since their last encounter by fighting back from behind, claiming an emphatic 2-1 win in Madrid. It was their first win against Los Blancos in their entire history. Due to the pandemic, the second leg would have to wait until August. 6 months later, at the Etihad, the Sky Blues sealed the tie with another 2-1 victory in which Varane made 2 huge mistakes that cost his team the match. For the very first time, City had landed a real punch. But while they celebrated their breakthrough, their Champions League curse wasn't quite broken yet. In fact, they would go on to be eliminated against Lyon in the quarterfinals. Even worse, they would go on to lose the Champions League final in the following year, where Chelsea's 1-0 victory marked City's most painful defeat in Europe yet. Back in Madrid, things were finally looking up. Benzema had raised his game to a whole new level. Vinicius Jr. was becoming unplayable, and while Rodrygo showed promise, no one could have predicted how crucial he would become. By 2022, when City and Madrid met in the Champions League semi-finals again, it actually felt like the official beginning of the bitter rivalry we know today. It was Europe's best team, as hungry as ever for the trophy, versus a Real Madrid that was still in the process of finding its identity with a rejuvenated squad. The first leg at the Etihad was football at its purest, a breathtaking display of attack after attack where every moment of brilliance was easily answered. City would surge ahead with ruthless efficiency, only for Madrid to respond with that characteristic resilience that had defined their Champions League legacy. When the dust settled, City had edged a 4-3 victory that somehow felt both dominant and fragile. Back in the Spanish capital, we were about to witness one of the most dramatic games in competition history. For 73 minutes, City controlled the tempo masterfully. They absorbed pressure, nullified Madrid's attacks, and threatened on the counter. When Mahrez finally broke through with a powerful strike, it felt like the decisive blow. But Madrid don't like quiet exits, and what happened next would become Champions League legend. Rodrygo, who had entered in the second half, scored twice in 89 seconds, each goal sending shockwaves through football. The Bernabéu erupted into pure madness, and when Benzema settled it in extra time, City's players could only stand and stare, victims of another Madrid miracle. The wounds of 2022 ran deep, but for City they also brought clarity. That summer, Pep and the club brought Erling Haaland. The Norwegian striker seemed to be the final piece of the puzzle, the missing ingredient in their relentless pursuit of European glory. When they drew Madrid again in the 2023 semi-finals, Pep was direct.
And I think all the clubs around the world had the feeling that if you want to win this competition, you have to beat Real Madrid.
The first leg in Spain saw Vinicius fire Madrid ahead, only for De Bruyne to level the score with a thunderous strike. But it was at the Etihad where City would make their real statement. From the first whistle, the Sky Blues were relentless. Bernardo Silva struck twice in the first half, each goal a dagger to Madrid's hopes. When Akanji and Julian Alvarez added the finishing touches, the scoreboard read 4-0. City had systematically taken Madrid apart, and the reigning kings of Europe, for once, had no answer. This time, City would not let the momentum slip. Under the lights of Istanbul, Guardiola finally led his team to the one trophy that had eluded them. The curse was finally broken, and Manchester City were champions of Europe for the first time in their history. A treble, a legacy-defining moment for Guardiola, and the validation of everything the club had built over the last decade. However, great rivalries don't end with one decisive victory. If anything, City's triumph only added another layer to the story, because in 2024, fate drew them together again, this time in the quarterfinals. The first game at the Bernabéu delivered a beautiful display of football, chaos, momentum shifts, and a total of 6 goals, everything this rivalry had become known for. And the second leg was more of the same, a roller coaster of emotions. By the final whistle, after 210 minutes of football, nothing separated City and Madrid. And for the first time in this emerging European rivalry, the tie would have to be settled by penalties. City had everything going for them. The home crowd, the momentum, the confidence of being champion. But there's something about Madrid in these European nights. The shootout started with drama as Modric failed to convert his penalty. But when Lunin stopped Bernardo's attempt, Madrid seized their chance. Bellingham and Nacho stepped up with ice in their veins. And when Rudiger buried the decisive penalty, Madrid had done it again. But just when you thought this rivalry couldn't get any more intense, or this video unnecessarily long, football's most prestigious award brought the ordeal to a whole new level. When Rodri was crowned Ballon d'Or winner in October over Vinicius, Madrid's response was nuclear. A complete boycott of the ceremony with a public statement, and even CR7 coming out to defend Vini. This rivalry now extended beyond the pitch. Neither team expected to meet again so soon, but City's uncharacteristic struggles this season, combined with Madrid's own surprising Champions League setbacks, meant both giants found themselves in unfamiliar territory, the knockout round playoffs. For the 5th time in 6 years, fate brought these two together. At the Etihad Stadium last Tuesday, City fans responded to the Ballon d'Or controversy with a massive banner of Rodri with his Ballon d'Or that read, "Stop crying your heart out." And when Haaland's penalty put them ahead 2-1, it looked like the perfect taunt. However, Madrid soon turned that mockery into fuel. Brahim Diaz equalized off of a bad clearance from Ederson, before Vinicius set up Bellingham for the 3-2 winner near the end, which they ironically celebrated right under the Rodrygo banner. But Madrid weren't quite done. They smelled blood in the water, and in yesterday's second leg, Los Blancos completely dismantled a soulless Manchester City who were missing their top striker due to injury. Madrid seized their chance, and Mbappé put on a show for the ages. A hat-trick that left City's defense in shambles, and Guardiola suffering his first ever failure to reach the Champions League round of 16. 8 years, 5 knockout ties, and endless drama. This rivalry just keeps writing new chapters. So, what do you think? Will we be seeing another exciting Madrid-City matchup in the Champions League soon? Or is Guardiola's team finally nearing the end of its cycle? Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like this. We'll catch you all in the next one.